Jason, how are you feeling?
Kind of full.
Are you uncomfortable? Are you uncomfortably full?
Not really.
I think you have to get them down before your stomach sends the message to your brain that there's no more room down here. You got to be quick. That's the strategy. Dunk them in
taking
water.
breaks to talk about local issues and make fun of Don Samuels.
All the Don Samuels air that you're gulping into your stomach is not helping your cause. Remember, as I've said many times, this is a live podcast about hot dog issues, and follow the link in the description to donate. And as your money comes in, it will motivate Jason to eat that last hot dog.
This is a real thing. Real thing.
None of you have the balls to stop this. Stop this.
I've got plenty of time. I have nothing else going on today.
We're in the Wedge neighborhood right now.
This is the Wedge Live podcast. I'm your host, John Edwards. I'm joined by Jason Garcia, Hot Dog Larry Jacobs. The best pundit in Minneapolis is Hot Dog Larry Jacobs, Jason Garcia. And Josh Martin, who's the second best pundit in Minneapolis, my personal Larry Jacobs. All of my nicknames are Larry Jacobs related. And before we begin, today's hot dog counter is sponsored by the North Star Art Club, who offer artistic experiences in a social setting for people of all ages. And in order to see the hot dog counter and to see Jason Garcia ingest a dozen hot dogs, you're going to have to go to youtube.com/Wedge Live, or just imagine it, because every time you hear a ding, I'm going to add a ding sound effect. Every time Jason completes one hot dog, you're going to hear a ding. Don't let it distract you from the serious political conversation we're having. We're going to talk about 61A, the race for Minnesota House in 61A. We're also going to talk about Don versus Ilhan Part 2 and the underwhelming sequel. And that feels like enough combined with the hot dog eating. Maybe we should explain what the hot dog eating is about. It's a reference to Will Stancil, controversial candidate, maybe the favorite to win in 61A. He's like a Twitter sensation. He's been called by Naomi Kritzer, I'm paraphrasing, so irritating that it makes me want to argue against things I agree with. So he's a notorious national and local political figure. I'm okay with Will Stancil. Jason, do you want to talk about what you could be the representative for people who just don't like Will Stancil at all, and explain why he bothers people so much?
I think a lot of it is his demeanor, his attitude online. He, and maybe this is why you like him so much. He just comes off as being a person who seems to believe that he knows more than everyone around him, and there's no possible way that he could be wrong about things. His opinions are the right ones. So I think that's a big part of it. And he kind of parlayed using that shtick to argue with, some of the less engaged gentry on Twitter, particularly those who lean to the right. Where it kind of falls apart is when people who actually do understand policy and things like that press him. Like one of his big things that he's been doing for the past year or so, maybe even longer, is going on Twitter to insist that the economy is going great. And if people are feeling like the economy isn't great, it's just because they've been hoodwinked by the media. I think he's used the term vibesession instead of recession. And if somebody says, hey, I am really struggling to buy groceries now, as well as pay for gas to get to work and things, he doesn't really have a response. He just ignores that and, will just kind of continue to roll with his prepared line.
He's known as a defender of the Biden economy. So he's a really smart person, a good communicator, I think, and maybe personally off-putting. Like Naomi Kritzer, I think I agree with a lot of what he says. Like, there are stats that show the economy is good, unemployment is low, but inflation is bad. I think a lot of the reason people think the economy is just the worst ever is because prices are rising. And like, if unemployment was high, chances are you wouldn't be among the 10% of people who didn't have a job. So you wouldn't really feel it that much. So people prefer, I think it would be better for politicians politically if unemployment was high, but inflation was lower, because everyone feels those high prices. But I don't know if we want to get into like an economic policy discussion here. Just listeners know that he is known as a defender of the Biden economy, and like just has been crusading on that forever, and maybe has like an off-putting way of arguing his case. Josh, do you have anything to add to what we're saying? Are you a Stancil-ologist? Oh, Jason's eating a hot dog. Jason is eating his first hot dog.
That's important. Yep. I don't know that I'm a Stancil-ologist. I've been following the 61A race somewhat. Will Stancil seems to have consolidated the, we'll call it the Lisa Goodman wing of 61A, since Lisa Goodman herself
the anti-progressive
has
lane is what I'm calling it.
And that has certainly been concerning to some people, and I think is why perhaps you described him as potentially the front runner. Is the theory is that Katie Jones and Isabel Rolfes will split the progressive vote, and because of that, Will Stancil will win, since there's no ranked choice voting. And that, I've certainly thought about that theory myself. It's very possible. The only thing I will say about that is, while that makes sense on paper, my experience has been that voters don't always think in those terms, or vote in those terms, or vote in what people who like really closely follow politics like us would view as logical.
Right.
People have a lot of idiosyncratic behaviors in their voting, and I think for a lot of voters who don't follow this as closely, I don't know that they necessarily see this as people in the progressive lane and the anti-progressive lane. I think to many people, they might view them as three progressive candidates. I don't know that framing's correct or incorrect, but I think that's how some people might view it.
I mean, they're all saying very similar things, and I don't think there's a whole lot of difference ideologically in the way they would govern. I think there's a whole lot of difference in their various experiences, expertise, maybe their issue emphasis, personality, the way they would work and do the job practically. Also, I think people who vote in a legislative primary are pretty engaged. I understand what you're saying, Josh, about like who knows what people are thinking. And obviously, like, Will Stancil is not Scott Graham, the worst candidate we have maybe ever seen in Ward 7. So he's quite a bit younger, and who knows how people may just think these are three young people. What's the difference here? And just vote for some reason that wouldn't occur to us. So the fact that a lot of these voters are super engaged, I think, in a legislative primary. Like, if you go to Will Stancil's website and you see Lisa Goodman and Tom Hoke, like, that's a huge cue to people on both sides.
Yes.
Like, if you may disregard Will Stancil's issue page, but if you see Lisa Goodman and Tom Hoke, you're either like, this is the guy for me, or you're like, no, never, not doing it. Let me see what the other candidates have to say. So I do think it's a huge advantage for Stancil to have kind of cornered that anti-progressive lane and have the other candidates kind of competing for what's left over. But obviously it's not going to break that easily. Some of them are going to like Stancil's probably got some lefties supporting him. They like him for one reason or another. Should we talk about the other candidates? I am personally supporting Katie Jones. I've known her for a decade and appreciate all the work she's done for this community. Just tireless, relentless. I have so much respect for what she's done, advocating for safer streets, transit, more park space, any committee you can imagine, any advisory committee you can imagine she has served on. Spends a lot of time advocating for housing policy, like so much stuff. She would be great at the job. I feel very strongly about this endorsement. Does anyone else have endorsements to make? Jason, you're eating a hot dog. How many hot dogs have you consumed at this point?
I'm on my last bite of hot dog number 2, John.
Would it be possible for you to give your endorsement while chewing on
No,
hot
I
dog
don't
number
think
2?
anybody wants that. But I actually did take advantage of early voting, and I cast my vote for Isabel. I totally agree with you on the merits of Katie Jones. I've been fortunate enough to meet her as well, and I think that she is a really good person and an interesting candidate for this position. But one of the things that means a lot to me personally is seeing young people, and especially young people of color, emerging in our local politics, and especially somebody with Isabel's experience working with so many people in the state legislature, looking at her endorsements and seeing endorsements from so many people who would be her coworkers. That carries a lot of weight with me. The first time that I met Isabel, I pressed her pretty strongly on her policy around how she would help people who are unhoused and dealing with the housing crisis here in the Twin Cities. And, it was a good conversation, and I'm glad that I was able to talk to her about it and hear her thoughts and see how she wants to engage with the affected communities to develop legislation to help push money into helping people who are dealing with being unhoused due to our rising rents and the continued housing crisis here in Minneapolis.
Okay, back to the hot dogs for you. I can't stop seeing Will Stancil on YouTube. I've been watching MSNBC a ton, and it's just like ad after ad for Will Stancil. I watch on YouTube TV, so he's got a ton of money. He's leveraged his national Twitter following to just blow the other candidates away on money. Somebody is apparently at my door, but I'm going to ignore it.
Maybe it's one of the 61A candidates trying to get your support.
It could be.
Yeah, you should answer it. Maybe it's Will.
Not bringing Will Stancil into my apartment. Jason, how much money have we raised? Because we forgot to say, this is a fundraiser. Not only are we sponsored by the North Star Art Club, who offer artistic experiences in a social setting for people of all ages, but we are raising money for a fabulous organization that provides meals to the community.
Yeah. So the last time that I checked, right before we went on the air, we had raised about $930, which goes toward the Community Meal Fund at the Indigenous Food Lab, which is located in the Midtown Global Market on Lake Street. And the people who are unhoused can stop in and get a free meal there during the standard operating hours. There are no questions asked. On days like they've been the past few weeks when it's super hot outside, really difficult to be outside with no shelter, being able to come inside and have a good meal and a cold drink really goes a long way for helping people out. So happy to be helping to raise money to cover that.
We're at $900. Keep in mind, this is a live podcast about wedge issues, so donate throughout the episode to keep Jason eating. Jason will be monitoring the donations as they come in. Another thing, you've been advised by your doctor, by which I mean Dr. Melody Hoffman, PhD, that this is not good for your health. You may be the oldest human to eat more than about 5 hot dogs in one sitting.
Yeah, I mean, it could very well be. At 750 years old, there are a lot of people, who were born in the 1300s that never experienced a hot dog, much less some sort of challenge to eat as many of them as possible. But yes, I believe Melody's exact words were, "That's not a good idea," and choose life, not hot dogs. So, and the fact that Melody is a doctor of journalism, I think, really makes it doubly relevant to our situation here.
She's just jealous that she's not here with us. She doesn't want us to do interesting viral things because she's so protective of her own turf. She wants to be the big deal in Southwest journalism, but it's us.
Yeah, I don't think that she would argue that you're a bigger deal in Southwest Minneapolis. You have easily 7 or 8 inches on her.
Mm-hmm. Josh, have we mentioned everything there is to say about 61A as Jason eats another hot dog?
As you mentioned, Will is leading substantially in the money race, which tends to be an indicator. He's raised over $90,000. Katie Jones around $70,000, and Isabel Rolfes closer to $40,000. That's probably roughly the breakdown I would have expected, based on indicators we've seen going in, and also money is an indication not only of support but also of the kind of the wealth of the people who are your supporters. So that's, for those reasons, that's probably what I would have predicted. Endorsements. Will does have one very high-profile endorsement for the area in Lisa Goodman. Other than that, his endorsements are a little lacking compared to the other candidates.
They're very interesting. They all there are people who retired from public office in the 70s, at least one, and there's some in the 80s and 90s. Lisa Goodman is comparatively a young, up-and-coming figure compared to his other endorsements. Nobody current is willing to say, "I'm for Stancil."
And then Isabel Rolfes is endorsed by a wide swath of state representatives from the metro area, and Katie Jones has a lot more endorsements from local elected officials, both current and former.
Lots of city council members, well, 2, and a couple of county commissioners who represent the district. The only candidate I'm aware of who has endorsements from current electeds in the district, Attorney General Keith Ellison, and park board, some mayors.
I'm trying to remember, did anyone from Josh's favorite local group, the Hennepin County Board of Directors, endorse in this race?
2 Hennepin County commissioners endorsed Irene Fernando, and Marion Green endorsed Katie Jones.
Mm-hmm.
Who are under fire. The Hennepin County Board is under fire for their proposal to raise their salaries by 50%, which all of Minneapolis is really going hard on them for. And I also kind of think maybe they shouldn't do this. Time when there are headlines about trying to keep the property tax levy increase from the city of Minneapolis at least under double digits. It's not great.
When I read that headline at first, because I'm so used to elected officials making so little money, I was like, well, they probably don't really make that much, so it's probably not really as bad as it sounds. And then they make $120,000 right now, so this would be $180,000 after 50%.
Whenever I've gotten into conversations about the Hennepin County Board, it's always been high pay, low scrutiny, what a great gig, nobody's showing up at your house to yell at you. you're making more than other elected officials. You could just spend your time doing the work and just living comfortably compared to a lot of offices. So it's a weird one for this to show up. Another thing I thought was maybe this was 50% over 10 years or something, where it's like maybe they're exaggerating, but no, it's just 1 year, a 50% increase.
I think Marion Green might disagree with your assessment of like nobody showing up at your house.
Have people showed up at Marion Green's house?
Oh, yes.
Okay. Have you been one of them?
No, I have not. But I certainly would have been if I would have been around at the time.
Leave Marion Green alone.
Don't boss me.
Focus on your hot dogs.
Speaking of hot dogs, I'm about to finish number 4 here.
Okay.
So
I'm
that'll put us at
skeptical.
a third of the way through. A third of the way.
I have pledged to be with Jason in spirit through the screen for as long as it takes for him to eat these dozen hot dogs, but Josh may have to leave us at some point. This is going to take us all night, Jason. I may have to cut out the dead air and only include video of you eating the hot dogs. We're only at 4. We're 22 minutes in.
Yeah, I'm hoping that there will be some good footage of me laying on the floor in my kitchen, clutching at my stomach, making a big deal of it like Will Stancil did.
Do we have paramedics standing by? What are the...
I do have a paramedic on speed dial, yes.
Okay. Are you alone in your home?
No. My
Okay.
son is also here just in case.
Okay. Do we have like Narcan and defibrillators ready?
Maybe the defibrillators. I'm trying to think of what might counteract all the sodium.
Are you drinking enough water? People are probably curious about that.
So I went into this on a pretty empty stomach. I hadn't eaten since about 10:30 this morning. When I was preparing the hot dogs, I was incredibly hungry, but that subsided a little bit while I had to wait to get the link to join the podcast and things like that. Since nobody does things last minute like the Wedge Live podcast, I didn't really start my regimen of drinking water and stuff like that, but I'm drinking some vitamin water as well as some alkali water.
Okay.
So hopefully that will help negate any sort of heartburn or things like that might come up.
Do you have to just have a large dish of hot dogs there with you? Can we see that?
Right. The way that I've been doing it is I have a plate that I transfer a few of the hot dogs into to keep them handy in case you should ask me a question while I'm trying to get one. But in order to keep them warm while we were waiting, I do have
There they are.
a roasting pan lined with some parchment paper that I have them in.
Did we say we're making fun of Will Stancil's hot dog fundraiser? Have we explained the motivation for this?
We touched on it, yeah. So basically, for his birthday last month, he did a fundraiser where for every $100 that people donated, he would eat a hot dog. And it ended up being the case that I think people donated just over $1,000, but he ended up eating 12 anyway. We decided that we could do something for a better cause than getting Will Stancil elected, and fortunately the Wedge Live viewers and listeners have really come in behind us. Since we started, we got another $150 in donations.
Really? Josh,
Yes.
make sure you plug the donation link too. Say, Jason will only complete this task if we can get some more donations in here.
So that brings us to just under $1,100, $1,080, which would be ahead of what Will Stancil was able to raise.
Look at us.
So, yeah.
One last thing, and I'll let you get back to your hot dogs, Jason. One last thing about Will Stancil is, so I hear what people are saying about how kind of irritating he is, and like the content aside, I'm not going to talk about the incendiary content of some of the things he's tweeted, which he says was in reply to like abuse and threats that he's received. I'm not going to get into any of that because I don't know. But like the long, you both use Twitter like me. I'm known for having a sassy Twitter presence. I don't know if you both get into like long back and forth reply battles. I'm sure Josh does. Just endless. I hate you. F you.
Josh just keeps sharing longer and more profane Google Docs with people.
Yeah, but like the personality type that would compel you to just get into a back and forth with some obnoxious weirdo, and I'm not even talking about Will Stancil, I'm talking about the other people. It's like, you're allowed to not reply. You've got, I think, like close to 90,000 followers, Will Stancil does. Like, I don't know that it's productive to get into these Twitter fights. Like, do your tweets, and if somebody doesn't like it, you don't have to engage endlessly with that person. It just seems like there's something going on, Jason, like what you said earlier, where just like there's a burning need to get the last word, just so sure of his own positions that he's correct and just thinks he can prove it with one more tweet. And I don't know if that is going to accomplish what he has said in some of his conversation with me on the Wedge Live podcast and the candidate forum about like he's tired of the factionalism and the arguing that we've had. And I'm sure he's not like this in person, but like there's something about that personality type that draws him into these endless like battles in the replies that it's maybe not conducive to putting an end to the factionalism that he's been decrying.
I mean, I think that's right. And I think, especially when you look at the history of people, who have been in elected office that get into these sort of protracted things from around the Twin Cities, or people who maybe aren't currently elected but are trying to become elected or have a close proximity to elected people. I certainly think of Joe Radinovich and some of the long diatribes and tirades he's gone on and back and forth with people. But it also brings to mind Don Samuels trying to be flippant and, kind of speaking out on Twitter in ways that aren't very measured or thoughtful and don't necessarily play well with the electorate.
Okay, nice segue into Don Samuels. We're here for Don versus Ilhan Part 2. The Don Samuels campaign has released new yard signs that say Don versus Ilhan on them, and I think maybe it's motivated by a sense that they're not getting traction this time around. It's been kind of a lackluster effort in 2024 compared to 2022. And just, we need to remind people who might not be DFL voters that they hate Ilhan and they need to show up at the primary to vote against her. And whether you know about this Don character or not, he is the anti-Ilhan, and that's really all you need to know. Josh, are there any... what's going on in the race for U.S. Congress in the 5th Congressional District, which is mostly Minneapolis?
Yes, so the 5th Congressional District include primarily Minneapolis and also some of the first-string suburbs. We ultimately won't know until Election Day, but the way it's going so far, it doesn't seem to be as close a race this time. The Ilhan Omar campaign seems to be taking the election much more seriously this time. A lot of organizing and fundraising efforts there. They have brought in some big names to assist. Bernie Sanders was here over the weekend to help motivate volunteers for Ilhan. And also in the endorsements race, last time, in addition to his slate of former Minnesota DFL elected officials, which he got made fun of a lot for, Don Samuels did actually have some current electeds endorse him last time, including a lot of mayors from around the 5th Congressional District, some legislators. They're not endorsing him this time. Don Samuels doesn't even have an endorsements page this time, I assume because it would be embarrassing. But as far as I can tell, he's been endorsed by 2 unions, some former state reps, and Tim Peterson. That's about it.
Tim Peterson. Josh is the only person who knows who has endorsed Don Samuels because Don Samuels won't tell anyone, and no one else cares enough to track it. So thank you, Josh Martin, for your service. I had not thought about how I think there was a press conference where he unveiled his slate of mayoral endorsements last time, right? And it's just,
it was a big deal. Like Jacob Fry endorsed him, a bunch of other mayors from around the area. None of those people endorsing him this time.
He's really flagging. And internal polls, take with a grain of salt, but that Ilhan poll showing her up by how much?
Like 30 or something?
Yeah, wasn't that like 65 to 30 or something like that?
It was pretty big, and I think it's probably closer to correct than not.
And you generally want to discount internal somewhat, but yeah, that's a tremendous lead. And Don Samuels, in their emails, they put out some internal polls of their own, and even their internal polls have him down by less. I think they have him. It's hard to tell because they didn't show numbers; they just showed a graph, but it looked like in the ballpark of down by 5 to me.
That's a pretty big disparity. But I guess if you're down that much, you're gonna want to massage the numbers a bit.
Yeah,
5 is the limit to not demoralizing your supporters. Let's talk about the issues. He has had a very backward-looking campaign. It was in 2022. It felt more like current events to be running on 2020, and whether you're thinking MPD is a disaster and we need to move on and find something different, or you're thinking that crime is out of control. Oh my God, get the staffing up ASAP, do whatever it takes. It felt like a current issue. He is so focused on Ilhan as a main driver of what happened in Minneapolis in 2020. And she's not in the chain of command. She is not our strong mayor. She is she's a legislator at the federal level, very far removed. And to continue making it about question 2, it kind of gives everyone who supported question 2, and it wasn't all abolitionists, it wasn't all defunders who voted for question 2. You could be a very middle of the road. I want some alternatives here. MPD isn't working out. We need to fix our public safety system and do something different. Don Samuels, by looking backward and attacking that, is telling those people, if you supported question 2, I'm not for you. I'm really pissed about that, and anyone who supported it wants to burn the city down. Focusing on the abandoned car in his neighbor's yard, that was an answer he gave. That's not Ilhan. She's not the strong mayor. He's running for mayor of Minneapolis. He's looking back. He's not running a good campaign. Josh, what do you think the issues are aside from resentment and focus on the past? What else is he running on?
Earlier in the campaign, he focused a lot more on the conflict in Gaza, and kind of pounced on that as what he perceived as a weakness for Ilhan. Now, since that time, the conflict and public opinion of that has shifted a little bit. So now Don Samuels tends not to talk about that as much, because it seems, if anything, that issue benefits Ilhan Omar now, particularly in the 5th District.
Yeah. It turns out in one of the most progressive places in the United States, war crimes, genocide is not popular.
Hard to believe, isn't it? You brought up earlier his new lawn signs that are very, Don versus Ilhan. It feels like a huge tactical blunder to put your opponent's name on the sign as well. So if people are just driving past, they're like, oh, they have a 50-50 chance of perceiving your name or her name. In this primary, as Josh pointed out earlier, it's hard to say exactly who is going to be voting and things like that, but we do like to think that they are people who are more engaged since it's a primary. And I think a lot of people, we had our referendum on Ilhan 2 years ago, and I think a lot of people are no longer as interested in that, especially as some of the uglier rhetoric from the Don Samuels campaign has come out that has made him look much more misogynist by saying she's not cute or not cute enough to get away with what she's doing and things like that. And I think for him it's very personal. I think that he does not like Ilhan as a person, and therefore it's hard for him to kind of scale that back and run a campaign that's more focused on the issues, especially because she is popular here and she does represent a lot of the people here.
It's just his list of grievances are more appropriate for running a city campaign. It is so much misplaced resentment on her. I mean, I guess he's already been a city council member. He already tried to run for mayor. Maybe he's not going back again. Seems very misplaced. On the not cute enough stuff, I think about this a lot because it keeps coming up and his answers keep getting worse. Very rambly, bad answer to the Minnesota Daily about explaining that. And my explanation is he's not saying she's not cute enough. He is saying that's all she is. All she is a very attractive, glamorous, well-dressed person. And she lets all the other stuff fall to the wayside. It's like the flip side of the sexism that denigrates women for not being attractive enough is the kind that says, no, she's so attractive and that's all she is and has nothing else to offer. That was what he meant by she's not cute enough or well-dressed enough to drop the ball and be bad at her job, I think. Not really a defense of Don Samuels, just an analysis of what he was trying to say.
Yeah, and as we all know, what's a really great quality in a candidate that's running to represent you at a national level is being unable to express yourself to such a degree that you end up saying things like that in the course of a campaign. When you are an older man attacking a younger woman, and at any time you bring up her looks, I think everyone is just going to roll their eyes and assume that you are at best clueless, and at worst a misogynist. Right. And that's certainly how these things have played out, especially for women in the 5th district. When he did a campaign ad with Ilhan's face on a missing poster, that brought up a lot of backlash from people who, rightly pointed out that there is a crisis of missing and murdered Indigenous women, of Black women who are missing and don't get attention, like when white women are missing and things like that. It just feels like he is trying so hard to be vindictive and play some sort of macho card that he just comes off tone deaf and flat-footed and not able to adjust to the political realities. And that also plays into your analysis that he's running a race for mayor or city council because that's what he knows, that's what he's falling back on, is running these city-based campaigns rather than addressing what you would want to talk about for Congress.
And he was not a good city council member. We're talking about what is it, Josh? 15 years ago he was on the city council? He was weakening police accountability measures before it was cool. If anyone represents the problem with how we've handled public safety in Minneapolis over the generations, it is Don Samuels. Knee-jerk, rah-rah, go MPD stuff has not served us well. And if you want to bring it back, run for city council again.
Don Samuels was on city council from 2003 to 2013.
Okay.
He was also in the school board from 2015 to 2019.
Maybe, I think, Anton Melton Mux. Do I have that correct? Was it Anton or Anton? Does anyone know?
I believe it was Anton Melton Mew.
Right. And I think the X had a pronunciation of some kind. It wasn't like a totally silent French thing. But we're sorry, Anton. I think that's the style of candidate you need to run. Somebody who is fresh and new.
Because
and
he had such
a
a successful run. Is that what you're saying?
It wasn't successful, but I think I just feel like
Well,
it'd be less
think
unpleasant for me to watch.
There is an argument that perhaps, because there's so many, there's a lot of people in CD5. I think we're learning from the past several campaigns. There's a sizable number of people in CD5 who are just anti-Ilhan voters. So there's potentially an argument that a better strategy would be to run someone like Anton, who's a blank slate and is just a receptacle for the anti-Ilhan votes, rather than someone who has the baggage that Don Samuels has.
I think the problem is you can't get anyone who's actually progressive to do it because those people are concerned about crossing like the establishment, like the progressive DFL establishment. I don't want to make people mad. I'll just wait for something else. And so you're left with the haters who are willing to take her on. And it's just very unpleasant and not successful.
I mean, what's the saying? They're not sending their best and their brightest.
They are not sending their best.
In Minneapolis, this is our fourth election cycle in a row that people are trying to make about 2020, and I feel like that messaging is just getting tuned out by so many people now. People made a lot of hay on that in previous elections, but the further we get from 2020 and the more that people are dealing with this election fatigue, I think that going back to that well repeatedly is just, diminishing returns for them.
I want an energetic progressive to represent me in the U.S. House of Representatives because this is a very progressive place. We got plenty of centrists from centrist parts of the country, and that's fine. They get their style of representation. I don't want the fact that we had a really horrible police murder that kicked off a long and painful debate about public safety and police accountability to fool us into sending just a moderate who is just AIPAC doing AIPAC's bidding in Washington, D.C. I don't want it.
Josh, how old is Don Samuels?
75.
You would think that somebody with his record and his age would be looking for a retirement plan, not and I mean, maybe that's it. Maybe the goal is to get that sweet federal retirement fund.
That is ageism, Jason. And one more thing I wanted.
He's a tenth of my age. How could I possibly be ageist? I'm 750 years old. He's a mere 75.
It's true. If anyone has the credibility to go after someone on age, it is Jason Garcia, who is too old to be eating all these hot dogs. One more thing I want to talk about Don Samuels about is his housing policy is surprisingly good and not terrible. He mentions wanting to incentivize the elimination of single-family zoning. He gives a shout out to his support for vibrant, walkable communities. He wants to give federal grants to cities to rezone to allow corner stores. Surprisingly, pro-urban agenda and not resentful at all. I was expecting a more senior caucus style set of issues on his website, but it's obviously written by someone who's done a fine job creating some reasonable issue pages.
Probably touring to court some voters in CD5. If you had no idea who Don Samuels was and you just looked at his website, I think probably the only points of differentiation you would see would be on Israel, Gaza, and policing.
Yeah, I'm tired of hearing about the two-state solution. We're like so many steps away from that. It's like, I will forgive everything that is happening right now, but just know I hate Netanyahu and I am for the two-state solution. Please vote for me. The debate about that is so dumb.
Oh, speaking of the hot dogs, Jason, Twitter wants to know where the hot dogs are from.
Twitter, you've interrupted Jason's hot dog eating with this question.
They are Nathan's Famous that I purchased at Cub Foods.
Ooh. How was your experience at Cub Foods? I am no longer a Cub Foods fan. I've just slowly lost any interest in venturing into that store.
You've completely given over to the Germans. I know.
Yes.
No, it was fine.
A reminder that the hot dog counter you see on your screen is sponsored by North Star Art Club, who offer artistic experiences in a social setting for people of all ages. And if you'd like to donate, as Jason continues to work their way through these hot dogs, I'll put the link in the show description so you can donate. Keep in mind, this is a live show. Live podcast about wedge issues, and your donations make Jason eat more hot dogs. And we're stretching for time just so Jason can get through these hot dogs. Josh, what else is going on in the world of Minneapolis politics? The mayor came out and said his proposed 6.1% levy isn't going to be enough. And the new goal is to try to keep it under 10%. 4 more hot dogs to go.
A lot of commercial property is being valued less, especially downtown office buildings, because, well, with the whole pandemic thing that happened, a lot of people got used to working from home and are like, oh, this is actually nice. And a lot of offices are switching more towards not necessarily as a fully remote structure, but at least hybrid. And because of that, downtown office space is becoming less valuable. And that needs to be made up from somewhere. And I believe residential property values in Minneapolis actually went down too, but not by as much as commercial property, which was primarily driven by the cratering value of downtown office buildings. So what that means is that if there is a large increase in the levy, or an increase in the levy, more of that burden will be felt by homeowners. So that's certainly going to make the debate over the levy amount and the budget even more contentious than usual, because it's going to be hitting people's pocketbooks. So I'd expect that will be a frequent talking point by the mayor and the council as to why certain budget priorities should or should not be funded.
And the mayor could go back to his plan of chastising the work from home crowd about their nasty cat blankets. So when JD Vance came out and is like bashing cat ladies because he like hates single women, I guess.
Right.
I was reminded of the mayor's
I
cat
definitely
blanket
remember that too. Yeah, I think he can't make the cat jokes anymore, not just because of how poorly they went for him last time, but because now he'd be associated with JD Vance if he did that, which would probably not be good.
Yeah. Jacob Fry was chastising all cat people, not just the cat ladies, the cat dudes.
Yeah, he was really against anyone who was at home diddling on their computer.
Yeah,
that's right.
anyone diddling on the computer, which I think is
we're all on a
reference to Will
podcast right
Stancil.
now. We're all diddling on our computers.
It's true. Jason is diddling his hot dog. Josh, I'm relying on you for topic ideas here as Jason
sure.
continues to work through.
ShotSpotter was discussed just today.
I didn't have a chance to watch that yet. What are the highlights?
So they did receive a presentation on ShotSpotter. It was roughly $1 million was the amount of the contract increase. About half of that was for an extension through March 21st, 2027, and the rest was to expand coverage to more areas of the city,
including the Wedge. The Wedge is getting ShotSpotter. We're getting gunshot detection microphones in the Wedge.
Well, maybe. So the committee ended up postponing the contract amendment to the August 19th AO meeting.
Did they discuss it at all?
They did discuss it a fair amount. My guess is it's still gonna pass, but I think they want some more discussion about like what the long-term plan is and what the plan is for conducting an investigation of ShotSpotter to see whether it's effective.
Yeah. A lot of cities have come to the conclusion that it sends cops on like wild goose chases, and like we showed up to where the gunshots are supposed to have happened. No one is here. We find no shell casings. No one needs help. Maybe some Yahoo just shot his gun off into the air. And that's a very large proportion of the incidents. And then you hear from, I think, Brian O'Hara and like other police have said, well, it saves lives because sometimes nobody called the police. We show up to the location and there's a victim who's been shot in need of our assistance. That's the flavor of the debate. One question I have is like gunshots are becoming so much more prevalent that how do we even have the capacity to respond to all the gunshots? Is it a drain on resources? Does it become even less effective in the era of gunshots everywhere all the time?
It's part of a cycle of, by saying like, look at how many more gunshots we're responding to. We need more people. We need more money. And then adding in ShotSpotter to say like, no, look, there really are this many more, so we need even more resources and things like that. It just becomes a cycle of spending more because you know, even if you're showing up places and not finding anything, you're still saying we responded to a gunshot,
right?
When it may not have been. I think it's the sort of self-fulfilling prophecy that people who really want to spend money on policing love, because it gives them sometimes fictitious data points to point to and say, well, look at we're getting all of these ShotSpotter reports, so clearly it's chaos here and there's all this gun violence.
I've been tracking the crime statistics in like various neighborhoods and precincts, police precincts in the city. And one thing that stands out to me is the 5th police precinct. The number of robberies has tripled since 2019. And if you look at downtown is down by like half in the same time period. North Minneapolis is also down in the same time period. Some other places have seen increases, but like nothing like 3 times. That's incredible. And a lot of it is in the Wedge and Whittier. Like I'm just going about my day, living my life, doing fine, not being a victim of crime, but like a 3 times increase in robberies is significant. And that's where the ShotSpotter is going to be expanded into. I don't know if it helps at all reduce the number of robberies, but it's one thing that I've noticed.
You would think that it wouldn't, because aren't the ShotSpotter locations not really public?
So how does that make it not effective, though, if the ShotSpotter locations are not public?
Because robberies aren't, like, you're not usually reporting a robbery because of a gunshot.
Right, robbery is so I know this because I've done a lot of robberies, but a successful robbery results in no gunshots at all. You flash your gun, sometimes it's just a lighter. You flash your gun and you take the stuff, and successful robbery. Ideally, no one has been shot.
So by saying ShotSpotter can prevent robberies, you're taking a solution that doesn't really address the problem, But also, if ShotSpotter, like the argument that you would then make is, well, people are going to be less likely to want to commit crimes around these ShotSpotters because they'll hear things, and that will alert the police. But if they're not, like, if you don't say, like, well, there's a ShotSpotter right here, people don't know that, then they're not going to be, like, change their behavior in that area.
Yeah, I'm the one who introduced the idea of the robberies. I don't think anyone is saying it will reduce robberies, but I think the idea is it will reduce gun crimes, and there's a lot of people being shot.
Do you have statistics on what the most recent gun crimes have been like?
I can bring them up, and feel free to continue eating hot dogs, Jason, as I look.
I am. I'm about to start number 10 here.
So let's look at gunshot wound victims year to date compared to previous years. Our gunshot wound victims are pretty good citywide. We're at 225 for the year to date. This is compared to 171 in 2019, which sounds like a significant increase, but we were at 376 in 2021. So we're comparatively have come way down close to the level we were at pre-pandemic, but that's citywide. And so if I look at Precinct 5, whoa. So in Precinct 5, which is South Minneapolis, it's gone from 6 gunshot wound victims in 2019 to 32 in 2024. And the high was 36 in 2022. So that's, what is the percent increase from 6 to 32, Josh Martin? Can you do that math? And this is a segment we're calling Wedge Crime Watch.
That's a 533% increase.
It's a lot. That is bigger than the increase in robberies.
It's true.
So if the idea is that ShotSpotter can reduce gunshot wound victims and the problem of gun violence, then it maybe makes sense to expand into the 5th precinct. There could
Jason,
be some
people are asking about the hot dog goal, the fundraising goal. Twitter is very invested in the hot dogs.
So another thing on the crime stats, I've zoomed into Whittier, the Whittier neighborhood. And in 2019, there were 3 gunshot wound victims, and it's 23 now. That's just the Whittier neighborhood, which I think is about 15,000 people. Our previous high was 14 in 2022. So 23 is a pretty big increase, even off the high of 2022. So I'd imagine this is some of the data that is justifying the spread. Josh, so in that meeting today, did they talk about any of the crime stats, like why they chose to expand into the Wedge and Whittier? Do they talk about any of this?
Probably. I kind of skimmed it. I didn't watch the whole thing.
Okay.
So there's a limit even to Josh Martin's superpowers.
Josh, are you the bearded man who shows up to all the public meetings? Is that you? I can never figure out who that guy is, and I've wondered if it's you in a disguise. No. He's at every public meeting, every city meeting video, he's in it. And are you sure it's not you?
I'm pretty sure.
You appear to have really hurt Josh's feelings. The venom of that denial. But to answer Josh's earlier question as well, we're now at $1,130. So we're only $70 away from our goal.
Wow. Josh, threaten everyone on Twitter that no more hot dogs until I get my cash. That's a direct quote from Jason. Please tweet that. And go to the description. This is a live podcast about wedge issues and eating hot dogs. And so the more you donate, the more hot dogs Jason eats.
There's no bigger wedge issue in current politics than being able to eat more hot dogs than Will Stancil.
Will Stancil taunted you about this stunt you're doing and did a little Mad Max meme where the villain says mediocre. He sent that to you about your hot dog stunt.
Yeah, he also so I quote retweeted that and pointed out our very different motivations for raising money and putting our health on the line. And then he quote retweeted that, but ended up deleting it.
Oh.
So I didn't get a chance to see exactly what he said. I was just alerted that he had done it, but by the time I looked, it was deleted already.
You almost got into an endless reply battle with Will Stancil. Neither one of you is fit for office, I think. That's what I say. That's my conclusion based on the lack of self-control demonstrated.
Wait, are you saying Will Stancil was mocking you for eating hot dogs for charity? Is that basically what I gathered from that?
Yes, and apparently he has since responded saying that he is teasing me for not eating as many hot dogs as him.
That's true, Jason. Please have a heart. Let's forgive and forget Will Stancil. This is just a playful back and forth hot dog stunt.
But I feel like for that to be true, he would have had to have quit his stunt an hour in. And I'm an hour in, and I'm already almost done with 10 hot dogs. I have a whole second hour that he used to eat his 12. I could just take a break right now if I wanted to, and hold both of you here captive to.
It's true. We are captive.
to talk about more random things. Yeah, I mean, there are a million things that I would love to hear Josh's opinions on.
Yeah, Josh, what's next? What's our next topic, Josh?
We haven't even gotten to like charter commission or things like that.
Have we completed our regular agenda and now we're just stalling for time while Jason eats hot dogs?
Yes. Listeners, this is the point of the episode where we stall for time to give Jason time to eat the full dozen hot dogs. But it's for charity, so keep listening. We could talk about the St. Paul attempt to move from odd year city elections to even year city elections. I thought you had a fascinating thread on that, Josh Martin. Is it possible? Can they do it? Are they breaking the rules, doing something they can't do by putting this thing on the ballot?
It's an interesting question.
Like, I wonder if their city attorney will step in and say, sorry, guys, this is just like legally and practically not a thing we can accomplish. So it's invalid. Can they do that?
There are some complications. There's nothing that makes it necessarily outright illegal. Like there's nothing in state law that says, you can't hold ranked choice voting elections in even years, or you can't hold municipal elections in even years. The issue is that it may not be feasible. So the big problem is that state law provides that a ballot needs to be on a single piece of paper. And it can be, a pretty long piece of paper. And it can be a two-sided piece of paper, but needs to be one piece of paper. So in Minneapolis, when we discussed the same issue, the concern from the Charter Commission was that we would not be able to physically fit all of the Minneapolis elections and all of the regular even year elections on one piece of paper. They have fewer elections in St. Paul, both because they hold their school board elections in odd years, which wouldn't be impacted by this because school board is separate from the city government, and because they don't have an elected park board, they don't have a BET, so it would only be city council and mayor that would need to be added to the ballot. So it might be a little more feasible for them to fit it. Ramsey County also has the capability to have longer ballots as well. But yeah, there is still that question of like, could this be physically possible? And that's certainly things they're looking into. I know City Council President Mitra Jalali said she's concerned that it might be functionally impossible, and they're looking at all their options, including legal avenues. So we'll see what happens.
Another thing that it changes, I don't know if you mentioned this, Josh, was that city council and mayoral elections in St. Paul are in different years. So it would also have the effect of combining them into the same ballot, which is a pretty significant change there. Just like so many elections in St. Paul. Every other odd election year, you're voting for either mayor or city council.
Yeah, so the interesting thing about it is, so in Minneapolis, we because of the 2023 election, because of Phyllis Khan, we have not had an off year from election since 2019, and we will not have an off year now until 2027. St. Paul, you never get an off year, just elections every year.
Yeah. Melvin Carter sounds like he's pretty strongly against it, not just on the practicality, but the common argument made against it is that local issues get short shrift. I see that argument. I don't know. Am I back to being undecided on this? Had I ever come around and said, yeah, let's do even year elections? I don't remember, but I think I'm still on the fence about whether it's a good idea or not.
Well, and one thing to mention is this proposal in particular. So I know in Minneapolis, they were weighing whether to do gubernatorial and presidential. And I think with the exception of maybe Matt Perry, most of the Charter Commission, I think, was leaning gubernatorial.
Mm-hmm.
This proposal in St. Paul is to align with presidential years.
Can you imagine running a city council election, mayoral election, while like a presidential is on the ballot? Especially one is like insane as this one is sure to be.
Imagine if you were like this year, you were a city council candidate trying to like get people to pay attention to you.
I think the problem with people like Matt Perry, and I'm getting into Matt Perry's head here and assuming what he believes. I'm pretty sure he believes this is going to be great for the so-called Minneapolis moderates, more conservative candidates. If I'm on the ballot running for city council, maybe it's just the people who like are the most progressive who catch on because everyone's in a mood like we're going to stick it to Trump. I'm voting for the most blue-haired person on this ballot. The most blue-haired cat lady on the ballot gets my vote. So it could backfire on Matt Perry. Does anyone have thoughts on that?
It is an interesting question. I looked at this a fair amount in the Minneapolis context. I do think because of the fact that it would be increased turnout and also groups that have lower turnout to begin with have more room to grow when you increase turnout. Mm-hmm. If your turnouts for a certain group, even in an odd year, is already like 50-60%, you can't double turnout there because then you'd be over 100%, right?
Yeah.
But for a group where turnouts maybe only like 30-something%, you could potentially double turnout.
If we're comparing like Ward 5 to Ward 13, Ward 13 is basically maxing out already.
Correct.
Ward 5 has so much room to grow. Such a low turnout ward.
And I did specifically look at those examples, and if you look at an even year versus an odd year, the ratio of Ward 13 votes to Ward 5 votes is still higher in the even years, but it's not as big a disparity as it is in the odd years. So if you have more non-white voters, more lower income voters, more renters, more young people voting, that potentially has the possibility to benefit more progressive candidates.
I find that argument very compelling, but I also like having the space to talk about local politics. So
sure.
I don't know. Jason, I'm curious how you feel about this because I don't think we've had a chance to talk to you about this the many times that Josh and I have talked about it.
One thing that I hear a lot of concern about from people further to the left is just not having the time.
Yeah.
By having these elections staggered as they are, it gives a lot of the people who are doing the volunteering, who are going out and knocking on the doors, who are phone banking and things like that, it gives them time to, commit to each separate candidate. If they're doing that and everyone is running at the same time, you have to pick and choose. Like, am I going to try to campaign more for, a national level Democrat or somebody on my city council, or somebody who's maybe running against Jacob Frey. And I think that is a real issue. The people and the time that they spend doing those things are not unlimited. And a lot of people sort of get into their rhythm where they know each year in the summer they're going to start phone banking, they're going to start knocking doors and things like that, as opposed to trying to accomplish all of that in a few months every couple of years.
I think Matt Perry would say, oh, Jason, we need to think about the activists. What will the activists do when they can't volunteer on every campaign every year? Think about the activists. This is about democracy, Jason. More people voting is just inherently good.
I agree with that in principle, but I do think that, again, maybe that would lift some of the election fatigue that people are seeing, that I hear about a lot when I talk to people that are just frustrated with every year since 2016. People have been told this is like an existential crisis election. You have to vote for various reasons. If it's not Donald Trump, it's Jacob Frey. If it's not Jacob Frey, it's Don Samuels and things like that. I personally could see the value in saying we're just going to have one election and everybody's going to be on the ballot. But I do think that leans toward favoring the people who have more money to purchase ads and things like that, as opposed to running on-the-ground campaigns. And as we see, oftentimes that favors the most conservative candidates in any race.
Will Stancil is all over my MSNBC. All over it. Every ad on MSNBC is Will Stancil right now.
I'm so sorry for you.
If it was on the ballot this year in Minneapolis, which it's not going to be, how would you vote if it was like, we're moving it to the governor years?
Whew, that's tough. Especially because my bigger problem with the election fatigue is the Phyllis Kahn rule. I would probably be in favor of it, though, because I understand that not everybody is wired to follow these things as often as the three of us are. So I think it probably would give people who don't spend as much of their time more of a voice in a lot of elections.
I do tend to agree with Jason that one of the biggest concerns is volunteers and staff for campaigns. It's, I think, the most difficult problem to solve of a lot of the different issues. There are a limited number of people who have the time and interest to volunteer work on political campaigns, and there are a finite number of hours in the day. So we would need to figure out ways to adapt to that. Certainly, potentially would be ways to do that. Maybe more coordination between different campaigns, like a state rep and council member, like knock together, things like that. Although it does also occur to me that it may not be quite as bad as we think, because often some of the state elections aren't as competitive. I don't know. We'll see.
Jason, how are you feeling?
Kind of full.
Are you uncomfortable? Are you uncomfortably full?
Not really. I probably wouldn't have eaten this much ordinarily.
Don't ordinarily eat 12 hot dogs?
No. This is more food than I normally consume in a day.
In a day. Have you eaten it all before this time? Did you fast?
Yeah, I had a kind of a late breakfast about, I think, 9:30 this morning. And then I had some fruit at about 10:30. Then I kind of took the rest of the day as an intermittent fast. But I was just checking the numbers, and since Josh's last command went out, we have received $60, so we are now $10 short of our goal.
$10 short.
So, So we have that going for us.
Remember, as I've said many times, this is a live podcast about hot dog issues, and follow the link in the description to donate. And as your money comes in, it will motivate Jason to eat that last hot dog.
Yes.
When did it stop being comfortable? When did it stop being fun? What hot dog number?
I mean, fun is, it's still kind of amusing to me, I would say.
You're still having a good time.
But I would say I stopped being comfortable about halfway through hot dog 9.
Okay. That's not bad. That's pretty impressive.
I guess if I was doing some sort of competitive eating, I would probably be like dipping these in water. Now they're getting a little like crusty, which sucks some of the moisture out of my mouth and makes it a little bit less fun.
I think you have to get them down before your stomach sends the message to your brain that there's no more room down here. You got to be quick. That's the strategy. Dunk them in
taking
water.
breaks to talk about local issues and make fun of Don Samuels.
All the Don Samuels air that you're gulping into your stomach is not helping your cause.
I mean, and thinking about Don Samuels and Joe Radinovich has not helped my stomach at all.
Okay, we're going to have to find another topic, Josh, to extend this even further. I don't know if you have places to be, things to do, Josh, but
we could talk about how the fact that the governor of Minnesota, Tim Walz, may be the next vice president of the United States.
When are they announcing that? When are they announcing that?
What I hear from reporting is that they'll be making an announcement tomorrow.
Okay. Do we think he has a shot? Because Jason's going to give me a hard time about this because I'm going to say, I think he does well for himself on TV sometimes, but I don't know if I'm the target for a Tim Walz VP candidacy. I don't know how he's going to be received nationally, if they're going to think his little cable news hits are as amusing as like political junkies do, or if he's just the white-haired, boring old guy to a lot of people. There's something to be said for somebody with some dark hair and with a more youthful appearance. Like, I guess I'm referring to Josh Shapiro. Is he the other one that's one of the options?
Most reporting is that at this point it's down to Walz and Shapiro.
Been interesting to watch like national progressive figures like on social media or YouTube kind of glom onto Walz, and I'm like, oh, if only you lived here, I'm sure you would be Jason Garcia giving Tim Walz hell for all the things that that we don't like. Have any of you seen the Walz fan club, who is clearly like, he's got a sizable progressive fan club nationally. And I think if the grass is always greener, somebody else's governor always looks better to you than your own in some cases. Sorry, Jason. You appear to be having a hot dog related event. You can't answer.
I started laughing while I was swallowing earlier, and then I was trying not to choke because Josh had brought up, like, oh, maybe we'll hear before the podcast started, like, oh, maybe we'll hear and we'll have to do like breaking news. So as soon as you brought that up, I was imagining you doing the full like breaking news chyron and being like, oh, we're breaking the news right now, even though the podcast won't go up until.
Yeah, this podcast will not air until after the decision has been made. So all of our speculation, like all of this VP speculation, is totally useless. But let's play the there's our CNN breaking news music. I'm going to Josh Martin, who is in the field at Jason Garcia's apartment, watching the proceedings as Jason tries to ingest a dozen hot dogs. How many hot dogs into it are we, Josh?
I'm waiting for Jason to raise the plate so I can see, or to inform me. Oh, it looks like we are at 11 and a half out of 12 hot dogs from what I can tell.
Yes,
Yeah,
we
that's
are.
very close.
I'm into the last half, and also the reason my reaction was a little bit delayed was I was just checking the email, and we got one more $10 donation, so we have achieved our goal.
Wow.
We have reached $1,200.
Oh my God, Josh, have you ever seen
Raise,
anything
raise
like
up,
this?
raise up the plate with the half hot dog again, and I'll share that image along with the goal achieved.
Jeez, you just dropped your hot dog half.
I didn't drop it.
Oh, that's perfect. Beautiful. Beautiful.
Josh, in all your years of podcasting and reporting on podcasting, have you ever seen anything like this? What we've
I've never seen anything like this.
I'm sorry that you had to witness this, Josh. I didn't want this to be your image of me. I look up to you a great deal, and seeing me debase myself in a stunt eating competition it was not something I thought I would be doing.
So before this episode, this is another thing the listeners don't know, is I talked to our lawyers and our insurance provider. They told us not to do this. They are not covering this. We are out on a limb here with no insurance. So if anything happens to Jason, we're not covered.
Is it possible Tim Walz needed to eat 12 hot dogs in order to become the vice
He
president?
needed to eat 12 hot dogs on Pod Save America to win over the support to become Kamala Harris's VP. I think I'm breaking this up into 2 episodes. The stuff we intended to talk about, and Jason completing his hot dogs.
You're a disgrace to humanity, and I hope you get your shit together.
Wow.
Sorry, I'm playing with the soundboard.
Was that Carol Becker?
No, that's is it an environmental activist who was talking to Barb Johnson at a council meeting many years ago.
Oh, that's amazing.
I'm trying to think of her name.
Oh, I know who you're talking about.
I feel like if we just sat here and watched Jason eat 12 more hot dogs, I could think of the name.
Was it Roxanne O'Brien?
Roxanne O'Brien.
Yeah,
that's the get your shit together.
You're a disgrace to humanity, and I hope you get your shit together.
I'm glad I found that, because I think we never would have heard the end of it on Twitter if we all forgot who Roxanne O'Brien was.
And that's really upsetting for Dinkytown.
What was the context of that one?
That's some development in Dinkytown. This lady showed up and was like, there was a murder last week. I can't believe you're going to build an apartment building. Like, these two things are not related. Don't show up to the planning commission to complain about apartment buildings talking about a murder. Like, they're not related.
And that's really upsetting for Dinkytown.
When Jason told me his plan to eat 12 hot dogs during the podcast, I told him,
I've got plenty of time. I have nothing else going on today. And I feel like everyone's time is being taken up, including all of the people in the audience.
Yeah, I wish that Lisa Goodman was on to give her impression of this.
Blame the mayor, because he's in charge.
Even after she's gone, our soundboard is dominated by Lisa Goodman sound clips.
I mean, how could it not be? You have waved the banner for Lisa Goodman for so many years, for her brusqueness and her willingness to chastise people for asking questions. I don't foresee a Wedge Live ever where there isn't like some sort of Lisa Goodman tribute.
We measure all things by Lisa Goodman. The things we love, the things we hate. Will Stancil, we measure all things by Lisa Goodman. She is the measure of all things.
Do you think that Will Stancil and Lisa Goodman like each other? Or is this like purely like a marriage of convenience?
I don't know. I've heard rumors that Lisa Goodman just like doesn't like Katie Jones and is like, I'm not letting that person win this seat. I don't know if that's true or speculation, but
I mean, it definitely sounds like her.
And so many of Stancil's, one of those all of Minneapolis types, I forget who it was responding to one of Stancil's endorsements. I think it was like the Minneapolis Business Mag guy, like Adam Platt, I think is his name. Yeah. And it was like the most backhanded, holding my nose, at least he's not these far left lunatics kind of endorsement. And then somebody who's involved with the all of Minneapolis side of local politics was like, I'm loving all of these, I forget how he phrased it, basically like endorsements where you can tell the person doesn't really like Stancil, but is endorsing him because they hate the alternatives. Lisa Goodman gave him one of those endorsements too, although it wasn't quite as bad. It was like, we agree more than we disagree. Just making sure everyone knows they're not really on the same page.
Yeah. And I mean, that makes sense. What I recall, the actual preferred candidate, a lot of those folks, was Dylan McMahon.
Oh, should we do in memoriam?
In memoriam. Dylan McMahon 61A campaign.
Flamed out hard. That what I noticed at the convention was not compelling when he gave his speech. And Will Stancil was like kind of appealing to his constituency, Dylan's constituency, so much better than McMahon was. And I don't even know if it was on purpose. Just like Stancil has this very like matter of fact, we need to get back to common sense kind of message that really resonated with them.
Sure.
And McMahon was not connecting at all.
I just went back and was looking at old tweets from the convention. And if you recall, John, that was when you and Taylor were attending together, and you had...
It's a good thing I was there.
Yeah. You had sent me a text message saying that the two of you had no Wi-Fi and a very weak signal, so that I had to let people know that you were okay. And then I didn't hear anything for a while, so I started speculating that the convention had devolved into a Lord of the Flies scenario. And that without trying anything else, Will Stancil had reverted to cannibalism.
Yeah, if Taylor and Wedge Live both go silent in a windowless room, you can only speculate that people are eating each other inside.
And that's where Will's nickname, the Stannibal, came from.
Stancil the cannibal.
Have you finished cannibalizing the hot dogs?
Technically,
you're really dragging it out, Jason. Come on.
Technically, it's only cannibalism if it is the same species, Josh.
Well, yeah, but I had to make the joke.
Yeah, fair enough. All right. Are you ready, John?
Josh, I'm told that the hot dog eating contest is about to come to its conclusion. We're going live to Josh Martin. What's happening?
That's right now. Jason Garcia has just put the last bite of hot dog into their mouth. Jason is chewing, showing picture of a plate with nothing but a little bit of ketchup and some crumbs on it. The chewing continues. Chewing continues. Jason's laughing now.
Wow.
Still more
Any
chewing.
Idea how long has this taken, Josh? Is this the longest podcast?
It's possible. I think your instinct that we should break it up into 2 episodes was correct. Oh, Jason's drinking water now. All right. Jason has successfully eaten 12 hot dogs and raised $1,200 for a good cause.
Wow. That's amazing. Wow. Thank you to sponsor of the Hot Dog Counter, the official Wedge Live podcast, Hot Dog Counter, the North Star Art Club, who offer artistic experiences in a social setting for people of all ages. We couldn't have done it without the North Star Art Club. We couldn't have done it with all the donors who have been giving generously to the Indigenous Food Lab.
Somebody may have better data than I do on this, but I had gone back and looked through Will's tweets, and I'm pretty sure that he only raised just over $1,000 on this. But yeah, and according to our other dedicated researcher, Taylor Daleen, it took Will about 2 hours. So I finished about 20 minutes under that time.
All while podcasting, all while trashing
That's
Will
true.
Stancil, trashing Don Samuels, just creating havoc here.
Yeah, and it occurred to me about 10 minutes ago that one of the things that would have probably helped me feel less uncomfortable these last couple hot dogs was standing up and walking around, which
Yeah.
I really couldn't do while recording a podcast with the two of you.
I don't envy anyone who was in that apartment with you. I don't know what's going to happen after I stop. But I'm glad I'm not there to have to deal with it.
Well, in all honesty, I'm glad you're not here too, John.
Okay. This has been the Wedge Live podcast. Thank you to our sponsors and our donors. Thank you to Jason Garcia for eating a dozen hot dogs over the span of more than 90 minutes here on the Wedge Live podcast. I'm your host, John Edwards. Thank you to our hot dog fact checker, Josh Martin.
Thank you.
And we'll see you on the next one. Thank you for listening.
This is a real thing. Real thing.
None of you have the balls to stop this. Stop this.
I've got plenty of time. I have nothing else going on today.
We're in the Wedge neighborhood right now.